Libra, someone will create a situation to get closer to you. There's something no one has told you about how people approach you, Libra. You think you know when someone is interested. You think it will be obvious, direct, a simple question, a clear invitation. But that's not how it works with you. It never has. Someone, somewhere, is right now thinking about how to approach you without seeming like they're approaching you. They're calculating the right angle, the right reason, the perfect excuse to make the encounter seem spontaneous. And the strangest thing is that, deep down, a part of you already knows this even before it happens. Have you ever noticed how the most important things in your life never arrived knocking? They infiltrated your life, an event you almost didn't attend, a conversation that started for one reason and ended up somewhere completely different. A person who appeared near you so many times, it seemed like a coincidence, until it didn't anymore. This isn't luck, and it's not quite that simple either. It's a pattern so old in your life that you've stopped noticing it repeating itself. Because you, Libra, have a kind of field around you that makes people hesitate before approaching directly. They feel they need a reason. They feel that a blunt approach doesn't suit you, even without knowing why. And perhaps the question you've never asked yourself is this: why do people feel they need to create a whole scenario just to talk to you? Why doesn't anyone simply come up and say what they want? The answer begins long before this person who is approaching you now. It begins with you, in the way you yourself build each approach in your life. You are the first to prepare the ground before taking a step, the first to test the environment, to read the reactions, to wait for the moment when everything seems natural before acting. You do this so naturally that you don't even realize it anymore. But there's a huge difference between someone who creates a situation because they want to manage the encounter, and someone who creates a situation because they want to manipulate the outcome. And that's exactly where the discomfort you feel now lies, even if you can't name it. Because deep down, a part of you already senses that something is being orchestrated, an approach that hasn't truly happened yet, but is already in motion, silently, behind the scenes. And what you don't yet know is whether this approach stems from genuine care or from a cold calculation disguised as kindness. Think about how many times in your life you've been the one who set the stage for someone to feel safe around you. You softened the atmosphere, chose the right words, avoided direct confrontation, created a bridge so the other person didn't even realize they were being led to you. You did it instinctively, almost like breathing, and without realizing it, you taught the whole world to approach you in the same indirect way you approach others. That's why someone rarely approaches you in a straightforward way, because you yourself never taught anyone to do that. You taught the world to circle around you, to wait for the right moment, to create a pretty excuse before telling the truth. And now, someone is doing exactly that to you at this very moment in some corner of your life that you haven't yet noticed. The question is no longer whether someone will create a situation to get closer to you. That's already happening, closer than you imagine. The real question, the one that hurts just to think about, is something quite different. Very different from the question you've been asking until now, because it's no longer about discovering who is approaching you. It's about discovering if you still know how to recognize the difference between being genuinely sought after and being just another well-positioned piece on someone else's chessboard. It was while searching for answers to this that I found this digital book. It's called The Divine Path That Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Life of Purpose. And the reason it resonated with me is simple. It doesn't try to teach you how to please more people, nor how to be more available to those who approach you with ulterior motives. It gives you back something that Libras tend to give too much of to others and keep too little for themselves: their own discernment. The ability to sense an approach coming and ask, first and foremost, if it serves you, and not just the harmony of the situation. You're probably feeling a mix of recognition and discomfort right now, like when someone names something you were experiencing without realizing it. This isn't a coincidence. It's the exact moment when this clarity makes the biggest difference, because it's there, still within the emotion, that the pattern can truly begin to change. The link is in the first pinned comment, but be aware, this content may be taken down. Click now and download your copy. Before we continue, tell me something in the comments. The last time someone approached you in a way that seemed too coincidental, did you feel it was care? Or did you ever sense deep down that it was a maneuver? Let's take it slow, because this answer isn't as simple as it seems, and it deserves to be dissected with the same care you usually dedicate to everything that truly matters to you. From a very young age, you learned that directly asking for what you want is costly. Perhaps you saw at some point in your life that frankness generates friction, that confrontation alienates, that clear demands are seen as a burden. And so, without anyone formally teaching you, you developed another language, the language of the created situation. You learned to set up the perfect context so that what you want happens without anyone having to admit it was planned. An invitation that seems improvised. A conversation that seems to have arisen out of nowhere, a meeting that seems coincidental, but which was actually carefully orchestrated by you behind the scenes, with a patience that no one else would have. And the problem is that you got so good at it that you started expecting the same from everyone. Deep down, you started believing that whoever truly cares will make that effort. They'll create the setting. They'll build the bridge. Because that's how you learn to love, preparing the ground before taking the step. And any approach that doesn't come wrapped in that care starts to seem to you too shallow to be real. But there's a crack in this logic, and it's deeper than it seems. Not everyone who creates a situation to reach you is doing it out of care. Some do it because they already perceive, from afar, that you value this type of gesture, and they've decided to use it as a strategy. They're not building a bridge to truly reach you. They're building a bridge to reach you faster, without needing to truly get to know you first. Now look back honestly. How many times has a beautiful approach, full of overly convenient coincidences, ended up revealing someone who only wanted something specific from you? Perhaps attention, perhaps validation, perhaps just the feeling of conquering someone difficult to reach. And you, trained to value the effort of the approach itself, almost never asked what came after it. This is the uncomfortable mirror. You recognize the art of creating situations so well because you've practiced it for years. And because you recognize this art so well in others, sometimes you confuse talent with intention. Someone can be extremely skilled at orchestrating approaches and yet have absolutely no real concern for what happens after the bridge is crossed. The trap begins right here, in the difference between harmony built on truth and harmony built merely to appear safe. Because there is a type of person who studies exactly what makes you comfortable, not to understand you, but to disarm you. They will soften every gesture, avoid any friction in the first few dates, seem surprisingly aligned with what you value, and all of this may be genuine, or it may be a script rehearsed by someone who has observed you enough to know which buttons to push. Imagine a well-designed shop window. Every shop window is conceived to provoke a specific effect on passers-by, to stop, look, and enter. The right lighting, the right object highlighted, the surrounding silence, so that that single item seems more valuable than it actually is. Someone who studies you before approaching you does exactly that, only in reverse. Instead of selling you something, they create the shop window itself so that you are the one who stops, looks, and enters. And the most curious thing is that the more this shop window seems tailor-made for your taste, the less you will distrust it, because it will seem, above all, that someone finally understands you effortlessly. But true understanding takes time to develop. It's born from mistakes, adjustments, and small frustrations resolved together. A perfect, immediate impression doesn't come from time. It comes from careful observation from the outside without ever truly entering your life. And that's precisely the subtle difference that separates someone who is learning about you from someone who has already memorized you before even meeting you. And the most painful part is that you, Libra, have genuine difficulty realizing this in time, because your instinct is to give elegance the benefit of the doubt. If the gesture was beautiful, if the situation seemed thoughtful, some part of you already wants to believe that the intention was also good. You judge the approach by its aesthetics and almost never by the consistency that comes afterward. Recognizing this in yourself hurts, but it also liberates because it means the problem was never your sensitivity to beautiful gestures. The problem is that you never had your own compass to check if, behind the elegance, there was real intention. That's exactly what made me search deeper until I came across the digital book, The Divine Path That Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Life of Purpose. It speaks very directly about this blind spot of Libra, the beauty of external harmony that sometimes hides an internal imbalance that no one taught you to perceive in time. It's not about distrusting everyone. It's about trusting yourself again first. If a scene from your past has just come to mind, that's a sign that this reflection is already working within you, even if it still hurts a little. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. It is precisely at this point that a pause changes everything. Because when you learn to separate the talent for creating situations from the intention behind them, you stop being driven solely by the beauty of the gesture and begin to observe what it sustains over time. A genuine approach doesn't need a perfect scenario all the time. It can withstand imperfection. It survives a direct invitation without so much pretense. A calculated approach, on the other hand, usually crumbles as soon as the created situation ceases to be necessary. You've felt this before, even without naming it. That moment when the person who went to so much trouble to get to you suddenly stopped making any effort as soon as they got what they wanted. The scenery disappeared because the scenery was the whole product, not just the packaging of something deeper. Perhaps you're remembering a name now, maybe more than one, and perhaps you're feeling for the first time clearly that it wasn't luck, nor coincidence, nor destiny insisting. It was strategy disguised as spontaneity, and you, so trained to admire the effort of getting closer, barely had a chance to realize it before you were already inside the story. This type of recognition is often accompanied by a silent shame, as if realizing it too late were a failing of your own. It isn't. It's simply the result of never having had an internal point of reference to measure approximations by consistency, not by pretense. It was precisely because I felt this lack of reference that the digital book, The Divine Path That Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Life of Purpose, made so much sense to me. It gives Libra back something they were rarely taught to cultivate, their own axis of balance that doesn't depend on validating, nor being validated by, the beauty of another's gesture. If you're feeling this discomfort right now, it's because an old part of you is already ready to change this pattern. It just needs a tool to support this change beyond the emotion of the moment. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. This doesn't make you naive. It makes you someone who learned early on that love requires acting to be recognized as real. And that's exactly what needs to change. Not your ability to perceive beautiful gestures, but your willingness to demand consistency afterward. Just as talent can be confused with intention, choice can also be confused with manipulation. And this is a much finer line than it seems at first glance. Being truly chosen isn't about how much effort someone put into reaching you. It's about what that person does after they no longer need to make an effort. Manipulation depends on the context to work. True choice remains even when the context disappears, when the novelty wears off, when routine arrives without any glamour. Someone who manipulates you needs to keep the charade going, because without it, the connection crumbles. Someone who truly chooses you can simply exist by your side without needing to prove anything at every encounter. And it is precisely this simplicity, so strange to those trained to distrust what comes too easily, that is usually the truest sign there is. Imagine a real old-fashioned scale with two pans. A well-executed manipulation places carefully calculated weight on both sides just to appear balanced, but a small gesture, a reminder, a bad day, is enough for the excess on one side to reveal that it was never truly balanced, just weight well distributed by someone who knew exactly where to put each gram. A genuine choice, however, doesn't need such fine calculations because it doesn't seek to appear balanced. It's supported by two people willing to adjust their own weight whenever necessary, without fear that the pan might think a little from time to time. You, more than any other sign, know how to recognize a well-calculated balance, because you yourself have built several throughout your life, without realizing you were doing so. Now, the difference is that you can choose to use this talent to protect yourself, instead of using it only to please others. Perhaps this is the quietest twist in this whole story. You don't need to stop recognizing when someone creates a situation to get closer to you. You just need to stop confusing it with proof of love. The nice gesture can be the beginning of something real, or it can just be the gateway for someone who knows exactly how to reach you. And the only way to tell the difference isn't at the beginning, charming as it always is, but in what remains when no one needs to pretend anymore. So the next time a beautiful coincidence brings someone into your life, allow yourself to feel the charm, because it's real and part of who you are. But keep a small part of yourself observing what happens after the scene ends, because it's there, in the silence, after the gesture, without an audience, without a script, without the need to impress, that the truth about any connection finally emerges. Reaching this level of discernment doesn't happen overnight, and that's precisely why having a guide in this process makes such a difference. The digital book, The Divine Path That Guides Your Zodiac Sign to a Life of Purpose, exists precisely for that moment when you decide to stop judging approaches solely based on the beauty of the performance and begin to build within yourself a criterion that sustains any relationship, romantic or otherwise, long after the initial scene has ended. If you've made it this far and feel this reflection has affected you in a different way, that's the right sign to act while that clarity is still alive within you. The link is in the first pinned comment. The last copies are running out. Click now and begin your journey towards the clarity and genius you deserve. And you, who have always been so good at reading others, now also know with a new clarity how to read your own heart amidst all of this. Perhaps this is, in the end, the true nature of Libra. Not the search for perfect harmony out there, but the patient construction of a balance that no longer depends on an audience, a setting, or the approval of others to exist. Every approach that life brings you, beautiful or simple, direct or full of detours, will continue to pass through you. But now there is something new sustaining this flow, a quiet center, only yours, that knows how to recognize what is gold and what is merely a well-constructed reflection. And it is in this center, silent and firm, that the truest beauty that Libra has always carried, even without knowing it, resides within itself.